let's talk about what's really going on, because behind the headlines, things are getting wild. So apparently, all those whispers about Diddy snapping at his legal team, saying they promised him the moon, might not be rumors after all. Word just broke that Diddy's lawyers have filed to expedite his appeal. Yeah, you heard that right. They're claiming it'll be heard on December 23rd, 2025, and that he could be a free man by spring 2026. But hold up, before you start thinking Diddy's packing his bags, legal experts are already calling it CAP. And after what I've learned, I'm inclined to agree. Here's what's really going on. Diddy's team seems to be playing the oldest PR game in the book. Create momentum, feed the headlines, and make the public believe the government is backing off. It's a narrative shift. Plain and simple, they want people to start getting comfortable with the idea of Diddy walking free, even if it's nowhere near reality. So, what's the truth? According to multiple legal analysts I spoke with, this so-called expedited appeal is more of a publicity motion than a genuine breakthrough. There's no concrete record confirming a December 23rd hearing. What likely happened is that the defense filed a request to accelerate the appeal, but that doesn't mean the court approved it. And that part about Diddy being home by spring 2026? Yeah, experts say that's fantasy talk. Appeals in federal cases, especially ones with this level of media attention, can drag on for years. One attorney even told me, if Diddy's out by 2026, I'll eat my law license. Still, Diddy's legal team isn't stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. By leaking optimistic timelines and giving friendly media platforms a reason to talk, they're trying to soften the public's reaction when new court updates drop. It's narrative management, old school PR spin disguised as legal progress. And that explains why this story first gained traction through media outlets known to be Diddy friendly, not through official court filings. You've probably seen it trending on shows like The Breakfast Club or blogs that have a long history of framing Diddy as a misunderstood mogul rather than a defendant under pressure. But if you look closer, the timeline doesn't hold up. Federal appeals must go through multiple rounds of filing, opening brief, government response, reply brief, each of which can take months. Even if everything moved at lightning speed, there's almost no way for Diddy to be home by early 2026. So yeah, sorry to burst the bubble, but it's a false alarm. The truth is, Diddy's still facing a very long road ahead. What we're seeing right now is just another chapter in his team's PR strategy. A carefully crafted illusion meant to make him look like the system is easing up. And honestly, you have to give his team some credit. They're fighting hard to control the narrative. But facts are facts. Until an appellate court actually rules in his favor, Diddy isn't going anywhere. Let's break this all down in detail, because once again, it's not the court speeding things up, it's just Diddy's camp trying to speed up public sympathy. All right, let's break this down, because what Diddy's legal team just did has everyone talking. According to reports, his attorneys filed what they're calling an unopposed motion to expedite his federal appeal. Yeah, you heard that right, unopposed. So let's unpack that word for a second. Unopposed sounds like the government's cool with it, right? Like the US Attorney's Office looked at Diddy's motion and said, sure, no problem, let's fast track it. But here's the catch, it's not that simple. The filing reportedly came from attorney Alexander Shapiro, and it was submitted early this morning. The motion requests an accelerated schedule for both briefing and oral argument. On paper, it looks neat and professional. But when you look closer, it raises more questions than answers. First of all, how did they even manage to file this so fast? It took months to get this motion together, and suddenly, boom, it's unopposed. Legal experts are already side-eyeing that wording. Technically, when a motion is labeled unopposed, it usually means the government has formally said they don't object. But here's the issue. The U.S. Attorney's Office hasn't even had time to respond yet. So how exactly is it unopposed? It sounds a lot like wordplay, a clever legal PR move meant to make things look better than they really are. And let's be honest, Diddy's camp knows exactly how the media works. They drop these filings early, attach dramatic phrases like unopposed and expedited, and let outlets like TMZ or The Breakfast Club pick it up before anyone checks the fine print. That's how you shift the narrative. Now, according to the motion, here's the proposed schedule. Diddy's opening brief would be due December 23rd, 2025, the government's response by February 20th, 2026, and the oral argument would happen sometime in April 2026. Sounds fast, right? But again, this is just their proposed timeline. The court hasn't approved it. In reality, these dates are more wishful thinking than procedural fact. Diddy's lawyers claim this schedule is necessary because he needs a decision before his 50-month sentence ends. They argue he's already served about 14 months and further delays could render any appellate victory hollow. Translation, they're trying to convince the court that waiting too long makes the appeal meaningless, but here's where most experts rolled their eyes. Because that's not how federal appeals work. Even if the court agrees to expedite, it doesn't guarantee freedom. It just means paperwork moves a little faster. One legal commentator even said they're trying to sell hope as progress. In that unopposed claim, that's where people are calling CAP. The Department of Justice hasn't backed off this case. They're still pressing on all fronts. So labeling this motion as unopposed feels like a slick PR tactic, not a legal truth. In other words, this isn't a breakthrough, it's a bluff. Diddy's team wants to keep public attention alive, create the illusion of momentum, and make headlines about how he's supposedly one step closer to freedom. But those headlines don't match the paperwork. The reality? Diddy's still in a long, uphill legal fight. And until an appellate court actually rules in his favor, all this noise about unopposed motions and expedited hearings is just that, noise. So here's where things get interesting. The moment that unopposed motion story dropped, I started digging. You know how it is. I pulled up every message, every legal note, trying to see what was really happening behind the scenes. And the first thing I heard from one of the lawyers I reached out to, be real. This isn't a win. It's nothing but PR spin. That line stuck with me because according to several attorneys I spoke with, what Diddy's legal team filed isn't a court-approved motion. It's just a request. That's it. The government hasn't agreed to anything. They simply haven't had the time to respond yet. The motion was literally filed that same morning, and calling it unopposed right away is, at best, misleading. For context, when a motion is filed in federal court, prosecutors usually have 10 to 15 days to respond. During that period, the defense can technically call it unopposed, but that doesn't mean it's granted. It just means the clock is ticking. So this narrative that Diddy scored a big legal victory, yeah, pure fiction. Even if the government doesn't object, and that's a big if, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals would still need to approve it. And those judges rarely expedite criminal appeals unless there's a serious miscarriage of justice or a life-threatening emergency, neither of which applies here. So what's really going on? Why would Diddy's team float such a premature headline? Because it's step one in their PR playbook: shift public perception. Make the story sound like progress. Make the audience believe the system is easing up. And right when I started piecing that together, those bizarre prison rumors suddenly made sense. Coincidence? I doubt it. This is how Diddy's camp operates. They drop emotional, exaggerated side stories to make it seem like he's a victim, under attack, scared, just trying to survive. It's designed to humanize him right when the legal headlines look bad. But the reality, there's no credible evidence that any of that knife incident ever happened. Multiple sources from inside the facility reportedly said nothing like that took place. Yet, somehow, the story spread like wildfire through gossip sites that tend to favor Diddy's narrative. And people believed it, because that's what happens when you flood the internet with enough noise. The line between truth and fiction blurs. It's a classic PR distraction tactic. Create a crisis, earn sympathy, drown out the real story. And in this case, the real story is simple. Diddy's appeal hasn't advanced, nothing's been granted, nothing's changed. Honestly, the irony is wild. While Diddy's team is out here painting pictures of danger and redemption, the actual paperwork still says the same thing it did months ago, pending review. So when you see headlines claiming Diddy's one step closer to freedom, take a breath, look closer. Because behind the press releases and sensational rumors, the truth remains the same. This is all part of the spin. Now, this is where the story takes an even stranger turn. Out of nowhere, Tekashi 6ix9ine pops up claiming he once shared a cell with Diddy. Yeah, you heard that right. According to him, it was Diddy, Tekashi, and even Sam Broman, the former president of Honduras, all in the same unit. Sounds like a Netflix crossover, doesn't it? Tekashi alleged that the feds might have placed him there intentionally, hoping he'd dig up information. And honestly, knowing Tekashi's reputation for being talkative, that theory doesn't sound too far-fetched. He's always given federal informant energy. But let's be real, none of that matters here. The focus isn't Tekashi, it's Diddy, and the way his team is once again trying to turn legal smoke into a PR fireworks show. When I reached back out to my legal contacts, they broke it down, step by step. Step 1, any defense team can file a motion to expedite. It's a constitutional right, not a privilege. Step 2, the U.S. Attorney's Office then gets around 10 to 15 days to respond. And Step 3, even if they don't respond, the final say lies with the appeals court. Here's the thing, prosecutors sometimes don't reply right away simply because they're swamped with other cases. And in this instance, that's very likely. There are reports that the same office is pursuing other high-profile financial crimes, including one tied to an Upper East Side figure accused of running secret parties and luring women under false pretenses. So it's not that they're backing off from Diddy's case, they just have bigger fires to put out. But here's the kicker. Even if the government never objects, the appeals court almost never shortens the schedule in major criminal cases. The judges decide based on their own docket, not media noise. Unless there's a dying defendant or an imminent deportation case, those deadlines stay locked. And that's exactly why experts say Diddy's lawyers, especially Alexander Shapiro, know better. They know the chances of this motion actually being granted are slim to none. Which leads to the real point. This filing isn't about winning in court, it's about winning headlines. That's what multiple PR insiders told me. According to them, this entire push is about shaping the media narrative. Oh my God, the government didn't oppose it. Maybe Diddy's not a danger anymore. It's all about softening the public image and planting the seed that leniency is possible. The idea is simple. Make people start picturing Diddy walking free, not as a convicted figure, but as a man turning a new leaf. And with that image in place, it becomes easier to float ideas like a pardon or even a commutation. But there's another layer too, money. Rumor has it that Diddy's not happy with his current legal team. An appeal could cost him anywhere from $8 to $15 million. And if he's frustrated, he might cut ties. So by feeding this illusion of progress, the lawyers ensure they keep their client and the paycheck that comes with him. Think about it. Headlines about Diddy's appeal moving forward aren't just for the fans, they're for Diddy himself. Reassurance that his team is making moves. In reality, nothing in the court docket has changed. But in the world of PR, perception is progress. So yeah, while the public debates Tekashi's wild stories and federal informant theories, the real game isn't happening in the jailhouse. It's happening in the press. According to insiders, Diddy's own team might be bleeding him dry, financially and strategically. One source even joked that in private group chats, his name is saved as Food Ninja. Why? Because everyone around him is eating off his name, his fame, and his fear. But here's the darker side of it. This entire expedited appeal narrative could also be part of a larger play, an attempt to pressure the courts through public perception. Think about it. If you flood the media with stories that make it look like the feds are softening, people start to believe Diddy's already halfway to freedom. The public conversation shifts, and suddenly, leniency seems like a logical next step. Except it's not, because anyone familiar with federal appeal procedures knows that even unopposed motions can sit untouched for months and sometimes even a year. These appeals move at a glacial pace, and unless there's a constitutional emergency, which doesn't exist here, the judges have no reason to accelerate anything. His 50-month sentence keeps running while that appeal drags through the system. And that's the reality Diddy's team doesn't want fans or Diddy himself to focus on. They're trying to sell hope in headlines, but the legal math doesn't add up. Legal experts estimate that federal appeals succeed less than 10% of the time. And that's in general. When it comes to Mann Act-related convictions, cases involving trafficking or coercion, the odds are even worse. Why? Because those cases usually depend on factual disputes, not pure legal errors. See, a successful appeal needs to prove that the judge or prosecution made a mistake of law, not just that the jury got it wrong. And that's where Diddy's team hits a wall. The case against him wasn't about misfiled paperwork or a broken procedure, it was about facts. It came down to whether the acts were consensual or not, whether he abused his power or didn't. And the jury, for better or worse, made their call. Appeals courts don't retry facts, they look for procedural flaws, things like improper jury instructions, tainted evidence, or constitutional violations. None of those seem to be present here, which means, as one attorney bluntly put it, this appeal is running on fumes. But that hasn't stopped the spin. Behind the scenes, Diddy's lawyers keep feeding optimistic updates to friendly outlets, making it sound like things are moving fast. In reality, the most likely outcome is months, if not years, of silence before the court even issues a response. And the more you look at it, the clearer it becomes. This isn't just about law, it's about money. Each new motion, each expedited request, keeps the legal bills flowing. Experts say Diddy's already spent millions, and if this appeal stretches out another year or two, the total could easily top $15 million. It's a brutal cycle, one part PR, one part profit. His team gets paid to keep hope alive, to make him believe there's still a shot. But statistically, he's staring down some of the toughest odds in the federal system. So when you see these flashy updates about Diddy pushing forward with his appeal, remember, behind every headline, there's a bill. And behind every promise, there's a play for perception. Picture this. You apply for a job, right? You've got the experience, the resume, everything, but then you get rejected. So you storm in demanding answers. Why'd you reject me? I'm the most qualified one here. Now imagine that instead of a hiring manager, there's a review committee. But here's the catch. That committee doesn't care how qualified you are. They don't decide who gets the job. They just check the paperwork. Did the resume arrive? Was it read? Was it filed properly? That's it. And that's exactly how appeals work. Diddy's situation is no different. His legal team is fighting to get a second look, but appeals courts don't decide guilt or innocence all over again. They only ask one question: was proper procedure followed? So if Judge Aaron followed the rules, and every expert agrees he did, then there's nothing to retry. No emotional pleas, no new evidence, no new jury. The appeal process isn't about fairness or feelings. It's about paperwork. And that's where Diddy's team seems to be misleading even him. They've let him believe this appeal could turn into a second trial, a chance to rewrite the story. But that's not how it works. Accelerating a briefing schedule doesn't increase the odds of winning. It just means the court might say no faster. In other words, moving quickly doesn't mean confidence, it means panic. Because time isn't on their side. The longer this appeal drags, the more of Diddy's 50-month sentence he'll serve before anything even reaches a ruling. So yeah, the team is racing against the clock, not for justice, but to keep the checks coming in. One legal expert put it perfectly: let's not confuse paperwork with progress. That line says it all. Yes, Diddy's lawyers did file a motion. No, it's not a miracle. The government didn't approve it. They just haven't responded yet. And no, the Second Circuit Court doesn't fast-track high-profile sex crime appeals just because someone's rich or famous. This isn't justice moving faster. It's PR moving louder, badly executed PR at that. The headlines might make it sound like Diddy's inching toward freedom, but what's really happening is far more routine, a procedural filing being dressed up as a major victory. It's meant for the blogs, for the fans, for the illusion of motion. In reality, his appeal could take months just to be reviewed, and even then, the odds of success remain razor thin. Experts estimate less than a 10% reversal rate in federal appeals, and even lower in high-profile criminal cases. So while the Diddy's getting out soon crowd floods social media, the truth is simple. He's still right where he's been. Behind bars, waiting, watching, and wondering how long the illusion can hold. But hey, maybe there's a poetic ending to all this. Maybe his appeal will finally be heard 2 days before his release date. That'd be the ultimate irony, right? At the end of the day, this isn't a legal comeback, it's a PR mirage. The headlines might glow, the fans might cheer, but the court doesn't care about noise, it only cares about the record. So, what do you think? Is this Diddy's last play, or just the calm before his next storm? Drop your thoughts below, and I'll see you in the next one.